Welcome to the Immigrantinlaw channel. If you've just moved to Europe or are planning to move, one of the most pressing questions is, how do you find your first job if you don't have local experience? Many people believe that without a European resume, without recommendations from local employers, and without the right background, your chances are almost non-existent. But that's not true. In fact, thousands of people who start practically from scratch find their first job in Europe. The key is not to wait for the perfect moment, but to understand how the job market works, what employers value, and what mistakes most often prevent you from getting an offer. In this video, we'll break down where to start your job search in Europe, how to position yourself effectively without local experience, and what to do to actually get employers to respond to you. Let's start with the most important point. When an employer says they need someone with local experience, very often they aren't referring to the mere fact that you've worked in that specific country. Usually there's something else entirely behind that wording. In most cases, the employer isn't trying to weed out all candidates without local experience. They simply want to minimize their risks and understand how quickly a new employee can integrate into the company's processes without unnecessary complications, a long onboarding period, or constant supervision. The employer wants to understand three things. First, whether you can adapt to the work environment. Second, do you understand the basic requirements regarding communication, deadlines, responsibilities, and documentation? Third, will your employment pose too much of an organizational challenge for the company? Sometimes, the question of your independence lies behind the talk of local experience. Can you quickly grasp new rules, understand the team's communication style, adhere to internal standards, and confidently perform tasks without a long adjustment period? In other words, the problem is rarely that you lack European experience per se. The problem is that you haven't yet shown the employer why working with you will be smooth, clear, and convenient. That is precisely why your task is not to make excuses for your lack of local experience, but to shift the focus to your skills, results, and readiness to quickly integrate into the work. The more clearly you demonstrate that you can be an asset, take responsibility, and adapt to new conditions, the less your lack of local experience will be perceived as a serious drawback. One of the most common mistakes is looking for any job and sending the same resume to dozens of companies. This approach almost always yields poor results. Instead of a clear professional profile, the employer sees a candidate without a clear goal and therefore without clear motivation or a clear value proposition for the specific position. In addition, mass applications quickly become tedious and mentally draining. When you apply haphazardly, it becomes harder to analyze job openings, tailor your resume, and understand which offers are truly right for you. It's much more effective to start with 3 steps. First, it's important to determine what position you're qualified for right now. Next, choose a few realistic areas to focus your search, and only then should you prepare your applications so that each one looks thoughtful and convincing. It's very important to honestly assess what role you can apply for right now. At this stage, it's best to consider not only your previous position, but also how well your experience is understood by local employers, what your language skills are, how quickly you're ready to start work, and how easily you can demonstrate your competencies in an interview. Sometimes a person has solid experience in their home country, but in Europe it's easier for them to start in a slightly lower level position, to get that first entry on their local resume, adapt, and then move up from there. In many cases, this path turns out to be the most practical and fastest because it allows you to avoid getting stuck in a long wait for the perfect job and start moving forward right away. This isn't a defeat or a step backward. It's a normal strategy for entering the market. Moreover, the first job often isn't the end point, but a stepping stone to the next stage. With a stronger resume, local experience, and a better understanding of how the work environment operates in the new country. If, for example, you've worked in sales, administration, logistics, customer service, marketing, construction, caregiving, the hospitality industry, or IT support, you shouldn't be looking for some abstract good job, but rather a clear entry-level role where you can quickly demonstrate your skills in practice. The clearer the connection between your past experience and the responsibilities of the new position is to the employer, the higher the likelihood that you'll be invited for an interview. When you're looking for anything and everything, you become an unconvincing candidate. It's hard for an employer to understand exactly what your strengths are, what role you're truly aiming for, and why you want to work for them specifically. Such a search often comes across not as flexibility, but as a lack of clear direction. When you choose 2-3 areas of focus, your profile becomes much stronger. You'll have a clearer presentation, a logical flow in your resume, and more confident arguments during the interview. Employers can more quickly see exactly where you can be useful and how well your experience aligns with the job's requirements. It is precisely this narrow but well thought out focus that usually helps you get your first interview invitations faster. Even within Europe, approaches differ. In some places, a formal style and a well-structured resume are valued more highly. In others, responsiveness and straightforward communication are more important. In some places, employers are more open to international experience, while in others, language skills are prioritized. Additionally, the hiring logic itself varies. In some countries, employers are open to considering candidates with non-standard experience if they see motivation and a basic fit for the role. In others, they pay more attention to local experience, references, the wording in your resume, and how familiar your profile is to the local market. That's why looking for a job in Europe in general is too vague. This approach makes it hard to understand employers' actual requirements and prevents you from developing an effective job search strategy. You need to focus on a specific country and even a specific city. This is exactly what helps you understand which resume format works best, how important the local language is, where it's easier to break into the profession, and where competition is higher. The more precisely you understand the specifics of a particular market, the easier it will be for you to adapt your presentation, and the higher your chances of receiving your first interview invitations. This is where many people make a key mistake. They build their resume around what they don't have. Because of this, the document immediately looks weaker, as if the candidate is making excuses in advance and diminishing the value of their own experience. Don't emphasize your lack of local experience. Instead, build your resume around what you already know and the value you can bring. An employer looks first, not at the country where you previously worked, but at how your experience can be applied to their needs. What a good resume should include: a brief professional profile at the beginning. In 3-4 lines, explain who you are, what your specialization is, and what you're looking for. This is the first section that sets the overall impression of you as a candidate, so it should sound confident, specific, and calm. For example, customer service specialist with over 4 years of experience in sales and service. I am skilled at handling objections, supporting clients, and resolving conflicts. I am looking for an opportunity to start a career at an international company in Europe. Next comes your work experience. Even if it wasn't gained in Europe, it's still experience. The key is to describe results, not just duties. It's important for the employer to see exactly what you did, what tasks you handled, and how you benefited the company. This format makes your experience appear more professional, specific, and clear to the employer. Even tasks that seem simple at first glance can be presented effectively if you highlight the responsibility involved, the scope of work, and the practical results. Also, be sure to include language proficiency, work authorization or current document status, digital skills, availability for an interview, and to start work. These points are especially important because they immediately address some of the employer's questions. The less uncertainty they have, the easier it is for them to take your candidacy seriously. If you have taken courses, completed internships, done volunteer work, freelanced, or worked on projects, it's worth mentioning these as well. For your first job in Europe, these points can play a very important role because they demonstrate your initiative, flexibility, and willingness to grow. Sometimes they are exactly what helps compensate for a lack of local experience and makes your profile more compelling. Many people limit themselves to a single job site and quickly burn out. Your search should be broader. The more channels you use, the higher your chances of not just seeing more job openings, but also finding opportunities that most candidates miss in the early days of their search. First, major job search platforms. These are a convenient place to start to understand what jobs are available on the market, which requirements come up most often, and how employers describe their expectations for candidates. Second, LinkedIn, if you're looking for office, digital, client-facing, or management roles. It's not just a job board, but also a tool for professional branding. In many cases, a recruiter first looks not only at your resume, but also at how your profile is set up, what experience you have, and how clearly you describe your skills. Third, specific company websites. Very often, good job openings are posted specifically in the careers section. If you're interested in certain brands, international companies, hotels, logistics operators, clinics, or local employers, it's best to visit their sites directly and regularly check for new positions. Fourth, local Telegram and Facebook communities, professional chat groups, expat groups, and city communities. That's where job openings often appear that aren't posted on major platforms, especially when it comes to small companies, service providers, local businesses, or urgent hiring needs. Fifth, recruitment agencies and recruiters, especially in logistics, manufacturing, services, healthcare, and the hospitality industry. It's often easier to land your first job through them, especially if you're ready to start quickly, are flexible about entry-level positions, and are open to various employment formats. But the most important thing is not just to apply, but to do so thoughtfully. A single, well-prepared application often yields better results than 20 generic responses. When an employer sees that you've understood the job opening, tailored your resume to it, and are genuinely interested in the position, your chances increase significantly. Yes, especially if you lack local experience. In many cases, it is the cover letter that helps make your application more engaging, clear, and convincing. While a resume presents facts, a cover letter gives you the opportunity to properly explain your transition to a new market and highlight the right points. A cover letter helps explain what doesn't fit in a resume. For example, your motivation, the reasoning behind moving to a new country, your interest in a specific role, or your readiness to hit the ground running. This is especially important when an employer may not doubt your skills, but rather how easily you'll adapt and how serious you are about the role. This is where you can address the employer's main question: why should they consider you if you're just entering the local market? A good cover letter doesn't make excuses or ask for leniency. It calmly demonstrates that you already have relevant experience, a clear goal, and a readiness to deliver results. The letter shouldn't be long. On the contrary, the more precise and clear it is, the more effective it will be. The employer isn't looking for a long story. It's important for them to quickly understand who you are, why you're applying for this specific position, and how you can be helpful. It's important to show in it why you're interested in this particular position, what relevant experience you have, why you'll be able to adapt quickly, your status regarding documents and language, if that's important. The employer needs to see a clear, motivated candidate. That's exactly why a cover letter often isn't just a formality, but your extra chance to stand out from other applicants and make your first impression on the company stronger. During the interview, the question about local experience will almost certainly come up. Here, it's important not to be defensive, but to answer calmly and confidently. Your goal is not to show that you feel less qualified than other candidates, but to give the employer a clear and mature answer that addresses their concerns. You shouldn't argue with the fact that you lack local experience. Don't dodge the question or try to hide it. Instead, steer the conversation toward what really matters to the employer: your skills, your motivation, and your readiness to hit the ground running. Such a response shows that you take employment seriously, not as a temporary step or a random opportunity, but as a conscious professional decision. And for the employer, this is always a plus, because they are looking not just for a candidate for the position, but for someone they can count on. The first mistake is waiting until your language skills are perfect. In many fields, a working level proficiency is sufficient, especially if you have other strengths. If you can get through an interview, understand the tasks, and maintain basic professional communication, that may already be enough to get started. Waiting for a perfect level often only prolongs the search and deprives you of real opportunities that you could be pursuing right now. The second mistake is applying without tailoring your resume. A one-size-fits-all document rarely works well. An employer wants to see not just a general list of your experience, but a clear match with the specific job opening. Even a small adjustment to the position, key tasks, and company requirements makes your application much stronger. The third mistake is downplaying your experience to nothing. What you've done before has value. You just need to present it the right way. Many candidates undervalue their past experience simply because it wasn't gained in the local market. But what matters to an employer are your skills, responsibility, results, and ability to solve problems, not just the geography of your previous experience. The fourth mistake is looking only for perfect job openings. Your first job in Europe very often serves as a stepping stone, not a final destination. Sometimes it makes more sense to choose a role that will help you enter the market faster, gain your first local experience, and then move toward a stronger position. Being overly selective at the start can significantly slow down the entire process. The fifth mistake is giving up too quickly. In a new market, even a strong candidate may need time to understand the rules of the game and get initial responses. This is normal. Sometimes the problem isn't with you as a professional, but rather that you need to slightly adjust your strategy, resume, approach, or search focus. The most important thing is not to take the first rejections or silence as proof that you have no chance. More often than not, this is part of the process that almost everyone goes through. The calmer and more systematic you are, the higher the likelihood that the very next response will be successful. It's not magic or luck that works, it's a systematic approach. The less chaos there is in your job search, the higher the likelihood that your efforts will start yielding concrete results. Your first job is rarely found by chance. It's more often secured by those who act consistently, know how to analyze their responses, and gradually refine their application. When you have a clear goal, a tailored resume, a strong cover letter, regular responses, and the confidence to ace interviews, your chances of landing a job become very real. In this strategy, every element contributes to the overall result. Your resume helps you get noticed, your cover letter dispels doubts, and the interview solidifies the impression and demonstrates that you are truly someone they can work with. Your first employer in Europe isn't looking for the perfect person with flawless local experience. In many cases, something else is more important to them: that the candidate is clear, reasonable, trainable, and ready to take on responsibility from the very first weeks of work. They're looking for a candidate who knows how to work, is ready to get involved, understands their role, and inspires trust. Trust is often the deciding factor, especially when it comes to your first local position. If an employer sees that you are composed, motivated, and able to discuss your experience calmly and professionally, the lack of local experience ceases to be the main obstacle. This is exactly what you need to demonstrate. Not perfection, but reliability. Not an attempt to appear like a convenient candidate, but a genuine willingness to contribute, adapt, and grow within a new work environment. If you don't have local experience yet, that doesn't mean you have no chance. It means only one thing. You need to present your past experience effectively, choose a realistic entry-level position, and act consistently. Your first job in Europe isn't a fluke. It's the result of a clear strategy, a well-crafted presentation of your profile, and persistence. And the sooner you stop seeing the lack of local experience as a barrier, the faster you'll start seeing real opportunities. And if you're just planning to immigrate to the EU, submit a request for a free consultation with the lawyers at Immigrantinlaw. We'll develop the optimal relocation strategy for you, prepare all the necessary documents, explain the nuances of the law in detail, and answer all your questions. We'll analyze your case, your goals, and your situation without using templates. Want to learn more or start the process today? Contact us. All contact details are listed in the description below this video. We're here to help you take a confident step toward a new life. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ask your questions in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. Discover a world of opportunities with Immigrantinlaw.